So just one more thing before we jump in. This is the issue. If you haven't gotten a copy of it, please go onto our website and order it. Order it for your friends and family. It's beautiful. It has a full art insert, that's full color art insert. It's absolutely stunning, and it's helping provide a spotlight for women and non-binary writers and artists' voices. And it's an important thing to support when we have a lot of nonsense everywhere. Putting your time and effort and money into small nonprofits is huge for us. So I'm going to drop some links for donations and subscriptions in the chat. These donations can help us in really small and large ways. The general submission period currently has a 2-week period that is open for BIPOC women to submit for free. So if you donate $20, that's 4 people who can submit to the journal for free. Just small ways go a really, really long way in nonprofits. So please consider donating or subscribing, or sending something to someone if you think they would like to see what we make. Palmer, did I miss anything?
No, you did. You did a great job covering about. There's so much happening, and for sure the support is greatly appreciated. Okay, so I think because we have participants and visitors from all over the U.S., for some of you, it's already getting late on a Friday. So we try to keep the event time to about an hour in total, and we will not have an intermission. But we're about to begin, and please feel free to comment throughout the reading in the chat enthusiastically. We can see you. If we can see you, snap and clap. Um, okay, and we'll post the lineup in order in the chat. Got it there. Thank you. So Mila Holt is up first, followed by Bahar Davudi. So let's begin with unmuting as you come. Mila.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to Calyx, which has been very good to me. And I really appreciate this publication. It's pretty wonderful. The poem I'm going to read appears on page 120. It's called In Memoriam, and it is about memory, but it's also about truth and the malleable nature of truth and history. At the time that I wrote it, I was working using a thinking journal to gather thoughts for a book that I was writing that I've since finished, and 2 more poems from that are appearing soon in Calyx. And I wanted to read a little excerpt from the thinking journal because it kind of gives context to where this poem came from. So let's see. Though we had the same parents, my sister and I grew up in different families. She's 4.5 years older. We argue about facts. She thinks my grandmother was warm. I found her distant. My sister spent 4.5 years in a family that had not yet lost 2 children, one to disease and one to murder. My mother had not yet been diagnosed with an incurable disease. My mother died when I was 12, so to me, she is unknowable. What would I think if I met her now? There is no way to find that out. Her friends' descriptions don't align. I don't know which of them to trust. There is grief that I can't figure out what I would think if I met my mother now. But it helps to realize that a literal truth does not exist. When I write about my mother, my father, my grandmother, I bring back a past not as it was, but as it was to me. This poem is In Memoriam. It is strange that a story almost tells, but does not. You might think poignant, obtuse, treacly, self-serving, and the meaning isn't right. Narcissist might be closer, but doesn't come from language we share. English has no word for crusty snow, melted then refrozen. There isn't an adjective that means kind yet idiotic. People say they are more passionate speaking Spanish, speaking Romanian than this flat tongue. I wonder if words exist to make a long dead father the same for you and me. Did you see him climb the dune, pricking his toes on seagrass in winter? Does the water in that creek feel biting on your souls? Tolstoy's Bonaparte was smug, deluded, but if we met him under a drizzly sky, saw smoke waft from roasting cattle his soldiers looted, what then? The dead do not tell the truth. Even the truth doesn't tell the truth. I'll talk. I'll tell the story.
Wow. Thank you, Mila. Oh, look at all the hearts exploding. Poets do tell the story. Next up, we have Bahar Davudi. Let's unmute you, though. I can't. Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Palmer. Thanks so much to Calyx for publishing my work and also for organizing this wonderful reading session. It's great to be here reading with you all. I'm going to read two poems. The first one is going to be the longer one. Just to put it in context, this is more of a poem on the page. So I do tell a story, but then on the other side of the page, I talk to the audience at some point. So there's a back and forth there. And another thing to provide a context is that I am Iranian and my native language is Farsi. The first poem I'm going to read is about Afghan girls, and the ones I'm specifically talking about speak Dari, which is close to Farsi, so their language is to some extent understandable for me, and that provides some context for the poem. What if the story I need to tell isn't mine? The camera introduces her. She takes her white lab coat out of a suitcase. Rubaba, a medical student at Kabul University, expelled after the return of the Taliban. If I want to tell her story to you, who live 2 continents away, can I use her real name? You say I shouldn't for privacy reasons. What does privacy mean for someone with an occupied body? How can I tell her story if I don't say her name? The camera shares snapshots of reality, her home, her family, the carpet she's sitting on in silence. The camera doesn't tell everything. I want to write a poem about what the camera can't see. I understand most of what she says in Dari. I grew up only 1,000 kilometers away from her, under another patriarchal fundamentalist regime. Yet so much differs between my story and hers. Am I qualified to tell her story? You may say, of course, to you we might look the same, all from the other side of the world. I want to write about her eyes that avoid the camera, staggering around, trying to make sense of the curse that has ambushed her, eyes that seek for a way out, like a caged bird. Her eyes remind me of mine, how they never stopped questioning why the laws set by others shaped my body, shaded my life. Rubaba returns the white lab coat into the suitcase, leaves the frame with it, not to travel, but to store a dream in the corner of a closet. Do you expect to see metaphors in my poem? Is the white lab coat a familiar one? The metaphors I use may not follow your symbolism. They will stand for her and her body, the rush of inquiring blood buried under a numbed skin. Since the return of the Taliban, a sharp rise in women's suicides, girls banned from education past primary school, 90% of women subjected to domestic violence. No statistics in a poem, you say? I think numbers are poetic. So are percentages. 100%, for instance. We must write poems after poems when the bodies of 100% of women in a country are taken hostage, imprisoned in their own homes, punished for appearing in public. That may be why 90% of the victims in Herat earthquake were women and children. I won't make this easy for you because life is not getting any easier for them because I trust you. But I promise to translate whatever I can for you about their story. Hajar, a teenager who dreamt of becoming a novelist, like Elif Shafak, her favorite author. Marzia's diary, a wish list in Dari, writing a novel, biking whilst listening to music, walking in the park at night, visiting the Eiffel Tower. How similar to my diaries at her age. To take my body for a walk at night without it becoming public property, to bike on the streets without fear of getting arrested. For you, it is hard to believe. Even I, after getting used to my bike rides on this side of the world with the breeze touching my skin, sometimes forget what my body has gone through. Here, it is easy to mistake privileges for rights. A suicide bombing at the girls' school aimed at Marzia, Hajar, any girl who dared to learn. Bodies of 50 teenage girls, the real battleground. The bodies who dreamed in their diaries, eager to recreate beauty in this world. No excuses, Marzia wrote in Dari. With or without electricity, I have to continue studying. Her promises to herself throughout her diary against the enormity of her enemies. Education, her solitary weapon. I think of patriarchy, oppression, foreign powers that don't care about the novels that only Marzia and Hajar could have written. How much contemporary world history is taught at your schools? Do they talk about your country's policy in the Middle East? How the Taliban came to power? When Hajar's body was found, she was gripping a pen in her hand, the one that several days before wrote, "Those of us who are here know that living in a cage is a gradual death." I know I am not qualified yet to tell her story. Not till I can turn each word in my poem into a gentle raindrop that penetrates your body, making you live every word in her diary, aching to write a poem, to reclaim her body as if it were your own. Thanks again, Calyx team, for inviting me. The next poem I'm going to read is, I think it's just the only thing to say about it. It has a bleeding title, so the title is part of the poem. Some call it an obsession that I hoard words, but they haven't lost words the way I have. I snatch words from poetry books, store them in my pocket, or slyly steal from the subway riders' mouths, shove them into my backpack, and pat them every few minutes to make sure they are still there. I even stockpile a bag of words in my kitchen cabinet. In winter, I pile them up in the middle of my room, sit in front of them to warm up my bones. Words can get lost. One day, as I shifted from English to Farsi, I witnessed the Farsi words disappear into the forest of my childhood memories like tiny nightingales. And prickly English words with sharp beaks flew into my brain to replace them. That night, I built a golden shrine for all those lost nightingales. Now, when I write in Farsi, I triple check my spelling, as if picking the correct letter is a life or death decision, as if perfect spelling means words won't die. I feel the urge to say words even in other languages. With such a variety in my back pocket, I hope I can finally say how I feel. I plant them in spring, watch them sprout in between my English stanzas, some Arabic to release a spicy aroma at the line breaks, French phrases to add a touch of velvet to the pauses, a few Spanish words to bring in the rhythm and music to which the lines would dance. I keep my favorite words where my mom's grandma used to keep fresh petals of blue jasmine in her bra. At night, I take out those words, lay them between my lover's pillow and mine, so that in the morning we wake up to the scent of fresh blue jasmine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bahar. A lot of reaction. An amazing pair of poems there. A pile of words to warm up my bones. Wow. Next up, we have Kim Cope-Tate. Can you also maybe, Kim, give us a little insight into Camille Conde? I don't know what you have planned, but I think it is something to do with neutrinos.
Yes, it does. Hello, everybody. Thank you to Calyx for publishing my work. I am a first timer in Calyx, and and thank you, Palmer and Brenna, for hosting this event. This is fantastic, and I'm in such amazing company, and it's really beautiful to hear everybody read. Thank you, Bahar and Mila, as well, receiving me. I became a little bit obsessed with this idea of neutrinos. I had not heard of them before last year, and they're abundant, nearly massless subatomic particles with no electric charge. Maybe some of you know about them already, but they're really hard to, because they only interact with gravity and the weak nuclear force. There can be at any time trillions passing through our bodies, and they go undetected. We don't have any idea that this is happening. I just think that's wild. And so, for this reason, they're called ghost particles sometimes, and they're born in stars and supernovas and radioactive decay, and so. The poem that's in Calyx, it's actually a 2-sonnet sequence, and it's just called Camille Conde. So that's what I'm going to read today. 1. Ghosts. In the city of Hira, there is an underground mine, dark nest for a stainless steel observation tank. Deep below sand, rock, soil, away to no stars. Yes, of course, below Earth to see the heavens. Neutrinos, they're called, every moment rain down on the planet, pass through it all, leaving no evidence. Right now, 100 trillion pass through the body, nearly massless shades. They manage to miss striking an atom most of the time. Maybe 10 collisions, they say, within a person's life. Crossing flesh like ghosts. 10 tiny explosions, miniature sonic booms, furtive echoes of future. 2. Sail. During the 13-second supernova blast that occurred in 1987, Camille Conde spotted just 11 of the 100,000 septillion neutrinos that hit the Earth. Such a feat won the Nobel Prize. I was just 16 and learning to drive then. No sign of heat or light, as surely hundreds of neutrinos exploded in flesh, water, pavement. Strange the things we can not know as we go, like the plowman in Bruegel's Icarus. Auden observed that he had things to do, felt no compulsion to stop for white legs in green. Something destroyed every moment, unseen. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Strange things we cannot know as we go. Next up, Holly. And Holly is going to share screen so we can see her presentation.
Thank
Did
you. I'm really happy to be here also. It's my first time publishing in Calyx, and I'm so pleased that you selected my images. So I thought I would just share a little about the process that I use in making these images. I would say in my work, can you see the images? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I would say in my work, generally, I'm really interested in kind of time and space and movement and the relationship between the handmade and the digital. And so the images that I made for Calyx, they're on pages 52 and 53, and they were made using a scanner. So I'm going to talk a little bit about scanners because I really love them. When you use a scanner, a ray of light sort of travels across a glass plate. And so rather than snapping a picture and kind of capturing an instant in this kind of quick way, instead there's a kind of opening and a crossing and a sense of reflection and the possibility of kind of inhabiting a moment. And so I love this sense of time, especially with my hand on the scanner. I can feel it pulsing, and even though I'm trying to stay very still, there's a kind of vibrancy and vitality that refuses total stillness. So that's part of the process that I really love when I'm making these images. The scanner also makes me think of this concept of the cora, which is a term developed by French philosopher Julia Kristeva. And she was interested in the experience of the womb and the space there, and this experience of having no boundaries. Instead of a mother and a baby being two separate things, she imagined them being in this kind of space of total connection. And the space and the time of this cora is organized by organic rhythms and pulsations. And so the cora comes before we know how to organize time. And it represents this kind of cyclical and pulsing time that again takes me to the scanner and what it allows me to do in this image making process. Here are a few other images that are captured with the scanner, and I love how they kind of blur, and it's almost like you're moving away from being even able to recognize the image. And so again, where the camera sort of cleaves time into this single decisive moment, the scanner unfolds across it, and you get a slow traversal, a kind of unfolding, and duration itself becomes part of the image. These are a few more. Again, with the scanner not capturing time, but moving through it. I think in this process also I'm drawn to things that are dead and dying. And this brings me to another thinker that I think resonates with this work really nicely. Her name is Bracha Ettinger, and she talks about this idea of the matrixial border space. And even that phrase, matrixial border space, is really magical to me. And it represents something similar to the cora. It's a womb-like enclosure. But for Ettinger, she's really interested in the sense of connectivity and emergence and shared space. And she argues that outside of the womb, sort of in the world, we're all in a kind of intensive relationality. We tend to walk around thinking that we're enclosed in our separate bodies, and she's arguing for a sense of that experience where you feel deeply connected. So again, the scanner kind of resonates for me in that way of finding this kind of connectivity in time and thinking about the sense of time being multiple, and death, which often seems so finite and like an end, instead becomes something that coexists with the present. And so she invites us to inhabit these kind of multiple experiences of time at once, through growth, through decay, and a kind of present moment of encounter. This really resonated when I took my hair and hand and laid them on the scanner, and kind of had this experience of uncanny recognition that comes with aging, at least for me. I don't know about you all, but as I've aged, often I'll look at myself and say, who is that person? And have this moment of not recognizing myself. And so the scanner helped me sort of capture that sense of just like unfamiliarity and uncanniness that I also really love. And I think the strange distortions and the kind of ripples and the way that the body becomes almost unfamiliar is something that resonates also. And then these are the two images that were published in Calyx on pages 52 and 53, and I made them by sliding the flowers across the scanner glass. And the result kind of is this streaked and glitchy, fractured image. But the dance of the hand and the flower and the light all points back to this idea of the Cora from Kristeva, and also to the sense of time and a kind of matrixial porosity of time, if that makes sense. And I think it takes me back to this kind of key question that comes from Bracha Ettinger's work. She asks, what does it mean to encounter another, an object, a body, or a world, not by mastering it, but by opening to it, by being fundamentally changed through that encounter? So thank you very much.
Wow. I love that we've incorporated the visual artist in these readings, don't you all? I mean, we have a new lexicon, we have new language, new vocabulary, we have a new perspective, Holly, through your work. Thank you. Next up, we have a fantastic prose piece by Julie Goldberg. Julie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie. I'm joining you from Rockland County, New York, just outside New York City, where it's getting late. The story I'm going to read to you is an excerpt from The Schools, which I was very honored to have published in Calyx. The Schools is a selection from my novel In Progress, which is also a novel in stories about women having various kinds of emotional breakdowns simultaneously in a supermarket in November of 2017, if which you remember was a very violent and upsetting time for a lot of reasons. So thank you. I would like to also, Brenna. This, I'm just going to read you a little excerpt. This character is Kate. She is the mother of 18-year-old twins. She is in the grocery store at the very worst time of day, which is right before dinner time. And she is thinking about her own children, and she's also encountering a young mother at the other end of the experience of motherhood from her. If you'd like to follow along, I'm starting on the bottom of page 97, and I'm going to skip something in the middle of page 98. The tantrum grows closer, and now you can hear the baby's furious complaint. Don't want healthy cereal, want tiger cereal. You turn. The mother is trying to wheel the cart away from temptation, but the little one has pulled herself halfway up in the child seat, her arms reaching so far toward Tony the tiger that you worry she'll fall headfirst onto the linoleum. Addison, sit down, the mother hisses. She grips the baby's shoulder to keep her from falling. The child's eyes and nose are streaming. The mother rummages for a tissue in her purse with her free hand. Addison has cried herself into gasping, ripping sobs that remind you of Morgan's when she could no longer be distracted by a favorite meal, a shopping trip, or a new phone, when she wanted nothing but death. The mother is stuck. She can't move the cart without risk that the child will fall, but Addison won't let herself be picked up. People circumnavigating the cart throw the nasty looks of those whose impeccable children exist in memory or the future. Their kids would never do that. Addison's mother looks ready to cry herself. Addison's chubby cheeks are flushed dark with rage. You walk past mother and child until you find what you think she's crying for and pluck it from the shelf. You hand the box of Frosted Flakes to Addison, who takes a full 5 seconds to connect the cardboard box in her hands to the thing she has been screaming about for as long as she can remember. She cradles it to the top button of her pink parka, her nose draining onto the blue box top. She melts quietly back into the child seat. The mother wipes Addison's nose and takes the breath she's about to use to tell you off, but you're quicker. I know, it's none of my business, and she's not allowed to have sugar or GMOs or anything she's seen in a commercial or anything she throws a tantrum for. I know. The woman begins to sputter a response, but you're not done. Just let her have it now and throw it out after she falls asleep tonight. She'll forget all about it by the morning. Who the hell do you think you are? Addison is sucking her thumb, resting her ear against Tony the Tiger. You take in her mother's jewelry, her cell phone, her shoes, her purse. You are speaking to a young member of your own tribe. Listen. I have 2 high school seniors. You're going to spend the next 18 years shoving things down her throat, much worse than healthy cereal. You'll wish it were this easy to figure out what she wants and give it to her. The angry woman looks too tired to argue. You remember the exhaustion of toddlerhood, the constant vigilance to keep the twins from running into traffic or drowning in pools, the 3 a.m. fevers and earaches, the inexplicable vomiting. You remember, too, the quiet midnight mothering, skin on skin, milky breath against your cheek. How easy it was to understand a need and fulfill it, simply, unreservedly. They had just a few years, no more than 4, when you didn't have to strategize about their future with every decision, forbidding any behavior that might result eventually in mediocrity. Overcompensating with electronics and designer labels and media and vacations and permission. Penitential offerings in lieu of all they had to be denied if they were to thrive while the world went to hell. You couldn't do anything about the world, but you could march them through the algorithm of success. You could, if you did it exactly right, make sure that yours, at least, would be okay. It's just a box of cereal. What is she, 2 years old? She isn't allowed to have junk food. I'm not making that mistake. This kid is not going to be addicted to sugar. You see that it's already too late, and she was totally fine with it until some crazy... Addison's mother drops her voice below a whisper and mouths the word bitch, then raises it again. Who can't mind her own business has to come along and ruin it. You want to retort that the baby had not been fine with it, had in fact been screaming over the noise of the crowd and the piped-in music at a volume that seemed beyond the capacity of her tiny lungs. But the gentle bell on your phone signals an incoming text. You don't bother looking. It's from the kids, frantic that you're not home yet. You're wondering why they don't just throw together their own dinner from the abundance in the cupboards and the fridge when you recall that the only thing either one knows how to make is microwave popcorn. They've both been too busy with school, sports, community service hours, and extracurricular activities to learn to drive yet, and Morgan hates being late to rehearsal. Connor will be shy about answering the door when the tutor comes. You need to get home. Addison's eyelids flutter. The tantrum cost her. You're right. It's none of my business. I don't know what came over me. I'm sorry. She looks surprised. She'd expected you to defend your crazy impulsive meddling. She sniffs and rolls her cart away toward the rear of the store. If she's grateful that you've solved her dilemma, enabling her to finish her shopping in peace while her baby nods off with the grinning tiger in her arms, she does not say so. She pulls out her phone. In a minute, her encounter with the nosy nut job in the A&P will be all over Facebook. You're not worried. No one would ever suspect it could be you. You're shocked at yourself, but not sorry. The mother will knock her head against the myth of the tabula rasa for the next 18 years. All organisms, no matter how perfectly mothered, crave sugar. Sooner or later, Addison will bite into a snack loaded with artificial everything. She will hear words worse than bitch and try them out on the person they will hurt most. Tony the Tiger is the first of many impure things she will adore over her mother's heartbroken objection. You remember the time Connor dragged a chair to the stove and climbed up on it to see what you were cooking. Hot, you warned him, and gripped him securely against your left hip, while stirring stew with your right hand. But he had grabbed at the wooden spoon and plunged it excitedly into the pot before you could stop him. The splash tattooed a third-degree burn on his pink porcelain arm. You had cried in the pediatrician's office over the flawless skin you had scarred, your ruined baby. Nothing is more fragile than perfection. Sooner or later, there's a Dorito, a Sext, a C-. Every success raises the stakes. You hadn't allowed them to fail when they were young enough for the consequences not to matter, so now they have no choice but to fail where it might. The major export of Alwyn Park, New Jersey is terrified, perfect, grateful kids who will, sooner or later, drop the damned ball.
Wow. Julie,
You.
terrified, perfect, grateful kids. I think I remember there's a part in there about how having them be grateful was an additional requirement, additional pressure.
Yes,
Wonderful.
that's from another section.
Wonderful story. We all
Thank
loved it.
you.
So it's so based in reality in this culture. Next up, we have Erica Wright.
Hello, thank you so much. It's also my first time being published in Calyx. Very honored to be among such incredible writers. I'm going to start with the piece that is published in this issue, which is on page 102. And it's called I Have Blamed Myself Unnecessarily When Things Went Wrong, from the Edinburgh Postnatal Depression Scale. I become what my doctor said I would: crazy, prone to fast talking, excessive spending, rage, followed by periods of catatonia, mutism, grief. The darkness behind my eyelids, the only place I rest. I dream my own death, my family downstairs, translucent, spilling light, watching TV with the volume high. The baby coos on my mother's lap. I draw a warm bath, tenderly unwrap the dressing from my wounds. I look at myself, full, unfiltered, surprised I have a reflection. The next poem that I'm going to read is forthcoming from Texas Review Press in their anthology called The World We See. It's women writing about neurodivergence. And this poem is called Microchimerism, which, if you don't know, is the phenomenon that when you have a child in your womb, they leave cells behind inside your mother. And so I was exploring this idea of generational trauma and inheritance through that lens. Microchimerism. Whose womb was the soil for the first seed? Who planted it? How many generations back did it bloom? Which ones carried the mutations, the borderline, the bipolar, the schizophrenia? Who was the first to have an escape plan? The brain wired for dopamine, overwhelmed by light, tender to touch, hugs like bee stings. Who was the first bad mother to hide from her children, seek peace in lovers, books, tatting lace? Whose mind searched for challenge, Riemann hypothesis during nap time, novellas over the Sunday soup? Who got stuck in loops, rumination, misunderstood cues, addiction to anything that quieted the voices, numbed the nerves? How did the first parents find each other? Did his quiet soothe her rage? Did her temper stoke his passion? Did they know their genes would reproduce over and over, copying the same mistakes? When they ask why my child is like this, I want to say it wasn't me who started it. It isn't me to blame. A flower doesn't pick its seed or start its imbibition.
So let's see. Forgive me. Next up, we have Daria Topusis.
Hi, thank you. What an honor to be in Calyx Press at all, let alone the 50th anniversary. So thank you so much for including my work. I'm going to read just the beginning of the short story that was published in this issue, and it is called Aurora Borealis. It's happening, Maxim said. He stood in their front yard in warrior pose, his arms splayed wide. Eveline had just returned from her dad's house and was holding her arm high so her wedding dress, still tucked in its white plastic cover, wouldn't drag on the ground. What's happening? She said. The light glinted against the silver threads in Maxim's curly brown hair. They were getting old, she thought. She'd allowed her own hair to grow white in the past year, hoping it would lighten the patchiness of her skin, marred by rosacea that seemed to get worse no matter what she did to cover it up. Maxim abandoned his yoga to follow her into the house. When he reached for the front door, she saw dirt under his nails, a sure sign he'd gone to work that day. She felt relief as they walked inside. Setting the dress down, she looked at him. Before she could say anything, he pointed and said, "What's that?" "My wedding dress," she said. "I helped Dad pack the house up today." She felt her own heaviness as she said it. "Why would you keep that?" he said, holding his ankle while he bent his leg toward his back to stretch his quads. "This was my mom's dress," she said. A flood of memories filled her mind. That hot day in July, and Maxim laughing so loud outside the church that she could hear him while she pulled the cold silk dress over her warm skin. She remembered how hard she had wished to bring her mother back, the younger version of her mom, before the cancer and weight loss, before the coughing and knit caps. Maybe if she ignored her own face and only looked at the body, she remembered thinking, her mom would come back through this dress they had both worn, a ghost made flesh again. Apparently, Maxim had forgotten all of this. "It was a pretty dress," he said, backpedaling. He patted her shoulder as if to comfort her, then said, "Is your dad's place packed? I bet he'll be happy to leave all that behind and start a new life. I hear they have free wine once a month. I bet those old people get it on all the time." Eveline stood still as her neck and face reddened and grew warm. That was her childhood home, the place where her mom had lived. It was where she died when Eveline was a teenager, a year before she met Maxim. She had to change the subject or she would burst. "What were you talking about before?" she said, her tone tired. "Something is going to happen." He lit up at the question, then began rubbing his ear with his thumb and finger. This always meant a cockamamie scheme was coming. "Aurora Borealis," he said, spreading the syllables like butter on toast. "It's coming here, and it's going to change everything." "The Northern Lights?" she said, doubtful. "Right here," he said, pointing to the ground. "The weatherman said he can't remember the last time this happened." "Okay," she said, looking over his shoulder at the rumpled bed. Maxim had probably taken a nap after work. She hoped he had changed his clothes before he got under the covers. She dreaded finding the crumbs of his landscaping later. "You stand outside as the lights pass over and through you, and it cleans your brain, unclogs all the ruts in your neural pathways, clears away old debris. Like that," he snapped his fingers, "you become a genius." That doesn't make any sense. It's like they say, it's not a conspiracy theory, it's a spoiler alert. Who says that? Maxim was loud and spoke with just enough authority that everyone believed him, no matter how crazy the idea. "Gravity is imaginary," he used to say, and heads would nod at his wisdom, his out-of-the-box thinking. He used to say that if you could count to 1,000 without stopping, you didn't need to count any higher. By the time you reached a number with 3 zeros, no other counting mattered. "Where did you hear this?" she said. She was in motion now, better to walk while he talked than to try to hear what he was really saying. "It's a well-known fact that Einstein traveled to Norway as a kid, and everyone swore that before he did, he was average, common, with no aspirations for his life. But then, Norway. The lights, green and pink, ran over and through him. They say he yelled out, 'Oh!' before collapsing to the ground. In the morning, he was running complex mathematical problems through his mind and began to talk of the possibility of time travel. Everyone thought he was crazy, but then look what he became, one of the smartest people of the 20th century." "Is it," she said, "a well-known fact? Have you ever wondered how Einstein got so smart?" She looked at him, annoyed at the spark in his eyes. Think about it, he said. She nodded, stuffing down the worry that flapped within her. People in town talked about them enough. She didn't need this on top of everything else. And I'll stop there.
All right. Wow, thank you, Daria. I particularly love the cleansing lights, which leads us back to the light with our next reader, R.K. Foth, who was the first prize winner of the 2025 Lois Cranston Memorial Prize, judged by none other than Ellen Bass. So let's hear from RK. Yes, there are claps for Ellen.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. I am so honored, especially to be even like a blip in Ellen Bass's mind. She's one of my favorite poets, so I was totally stunned and really surprised to be read by her. So thanks for the opportunity. I'll just read one poem, and at the risk of being a poet who explains their poems, I will give a little bit of background here. And that's that I wrote this poem after Hurricane Helene, which was the most deadly hurricane to make landfall in the US since Katrina, actually. And it happened in my hometown of Asheville, North Carolina, where I'd been living for 5 years. Kind of came like 400 miles in from the coast, this hurricane in the mountains. It was super surreal. And I evacuated after the storm hit. And I went immediately to my first writing residency in like an ecological paradise in a beautiful part of Virginia. So it was totally disorienting and just, bizarre to be going from like climate wreckage to kind of this climate utopia. And it really made me think about why write poetry at all when there are so many critical things and crises happening all over the world to myself and everyone else. So this poem is called Ars Poetica. Climbing through night, I saw the swan wearing his black Venetian mask and digging through snow white plumage, as if right there, under the wing, a little door might teeter open and scatter his chest of starlight out onto the pond. Once, walking the Long Island Sound, I approached the same kind of bird, but headless, its stethoscope neck missing or maybe tucked somewhere near the feet. It was the least graphic thing I had ever seen, a spare pillow dipped in sand, licked by the occasional wave. The Atlantic behaved boredly, knowing the bright pulse of a dead swan is the oldest, most overdone poem known to man. I was a child. I did not muse as I would now who killed it, but I swore to never mention that creature, no matter how tufted or perfect it was, in a future poem. It's funny how I try to keep myself from light, how I run into it regardless, how light must spill from somewhere, swan or no swan, door or no door. Thank you.
Thank you, RK. Door or no door. I think we can open the door to our next reader. Elizabeth McLagan. Really needing no introduction, who is a very fine poet. I think many of you know these next two poets. Elizabeth McLagan is also one of the founders of Calyx, which Brenna mentioned earlier. And we are so grateful to have you share your poems with us tonight, Elizabeth. Are you here? Just unmuting. Can you do your unmute? Maybe I can unmute you. I can ask you to unmute.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's really an honor for me to be here. I'm the last of us four kick-ass editors who started this crazy project in 50 years ago. I'm just going to read a little bit from what I wrote that's in this issue. one of the great things about this issue, in addition to wonderful poetry and art and prose, are the interviews. And so they interviewed me, and this is what I said at the very end, and then I'll read my poem. And my poem, In the Late Life, is about aging, the life of the mind, endless possibility, and openness to all kinds of experience. Although we always hope that something permanent will come from our artistic practice, aspiration in itself feeds the spirit. And I think that kind of applies to every time we're rejected, and we have to remember that aspiration feeds the spirit. I am honored to be part of this sister network, this ongoing library of words and images that honor and nurture our creative life. And since we've already talked about neutrinos, I will say that I wrote this poem probably 7 or 8 years ago, and I was really taken by that idea as well. In the late life, after the clock-like house payments and the merciless 8-hour vigil of work, which takes and takes, I have arrived, or not arrived exactly, for little has changed except hours not my own, so few I should shut my mouth before naming them. Still, I dream of a life in a high, precarious place, a ledge house, roof room, lined with steps and drop-offs, without walls or banisters, buying instruments I cannot afford, violin, piano, clarinet, saxophone, which I'll not learn to play. Yet they vibe, they hum in the neverland of neutrinos, those tiny, almost numberless things which glide through me as they do all matter, slipping sideways without annoyance, but changing possibly something. And even though much of my body hardly belongs to me, I confess my biome trembles with song at their passing. Already I can't see clearly, and who knows how long before black fog might appear with its Bible certainties. But a wild shadow could move across the threshold. So I step through the hours and drop-offs and open the weightless doors. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Those neutrinos snuck back in there, didn't they? What an honor. Next up, we welcome Ingrid Wendt, who first published her poems, as Brenna mentioned, in Volume 1, Issue 1 in 1976. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you so much. If I were to say how happy I am to be here, I wouldn't have time to read my poems. It's such an honor. And Elizabeth, I really resonated with much of my body is not my own. I loved that line. And wonderful to be reading with you, Elizabeth. And thank you, you and the other 3 kick-ass founders of Calyx for getting this whole wonderful ball rolling, and my gratitude to all of you current editors and you, Palmer, and you, Brenna, and everyone else who volunteers their wonderful, precious time to keep this journal flourishing. Like Elizabeth's comment or her poem, I'm also going to read a poem about the body. And it's kind of ironic because it was written years after I had brain surgery for a benign tumor that was really messing with not just my body, but also my mind. And I'm reading it. It's about learning to walk again. And here I am sitting in a wheelchair right now because I broke my femur on March 30th on a beach in Puerto Rico and dislocated the femur, and it broke. But here I am, and I'm healing. The unassailable heart. When, after 3 weeks mostly in bed, except when I wasn't learning to stand on my own and then to step with Walker and then with cane. To put one undependable foot in front of the other, to navigate under the strictest supervision all those long, too shiny halls. When, after weeks of meals with patients whose brains, like mine, were swollen, whose very essence had been exposed, if not by the nimble fingers of surgeons, then by the Judas of their own dear bodies. When, after night on endless night at the beck and call of my vital signs and the constant need of the constantly shifting staff to read them, allowing me 2 hours sleep at a time, unable to dream. When, after one small part of the self I used to be crept into the room, looking for the long-lost garden of song, and asked for Andrew Lloyd Webber's Requiem, after Placido Domingo's Hosanna nightly through earphones, filled to overflowing that vast, newly opened space at the base of my skull. Just when I knew for sure I needed nothing more, a volunteer wheeled me out the door and into a campus green enfolded in the giant red blossoms of rhododendron. Tears that for so many years had been inaccessible, even when one of my best friends died, tears all on their own started to rise. Hosanna, spilled over, Hosanna, in tune with every newly opened cell of my soul, in tune with blossoms praising the ever-lengthening sun. And I, certain as never before of what someday lies ahead. You also, what lay behind, the tomb of the unassailable heart. Qui venit in nomine Domini, tell me, what am I to do with so much love? And this next poem is a kind of narrative of my late husband's final moments. And this is titled Blue Morpho. It appeared in Calyx in 2019, I think. I wrote it in 2018 when I returned to the Yucatan jungle, where the two of us had had a writing residency 6 years before. My late husband, Ralph Salisbury, was also a writer. And he had a blessed death, and I was blessed to be part of and to hear the vision that he had moments before he closed his eyes. Blue Morpho. As when, moments before your eyes closed, that one last time you opened them wide, your face, the face of the morning sky, when the sun at last crests the far eastern edge of our world. As when I asked, what do you see? And your voice was luminous, yearning, sanctuary, sanctuary. Something just beyond the blank, pale green hospital wall. And then, birds, you whispered, birds. As when I asked if you wanted to go there, as when you nodded, as when I said, okay, it's okay, you can go. As when you sighed and turned to smile, and we kissed 3 times, sweet flutters of butterfly wings. Just yesterday here in Akumal, where for the first time in oh so many adventures I'm here without you, I never dreamed at the dive shop to find a pair of bark-mottled gray-brown wings, unremarkable but for their size, big as my palm. frantically scanning top to bottom the whole big plate glass window, holding them back from the blazing green jungle beyond, not thinking of you at all right then. I cupped closed wings in my hands and gently, firmly, with thumb and index finger, kept them closed and rushed them out the open door where, oh, they were blue, pulsing, shimmering, open, blue, iridescent splash of sky, returning to sky. Goodbye, goodbye, you beauty, my love. I'm here, you're there for now. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so very much. Great, great, great. What a legacy, you two. We have our final two poets. Two readers. Terry Wolverton will be followed by Susan Kress. Terry, you're reading a nonfiction piece, right?
Yes, I'm so honored to have this essay particularly in this issue of Calyx. It's titled Tilting at Windmills, and I'm going to read the first two segments of a braided essay. And if you're following along in the book, it's page 133. I'm still haunted by her voice on the answering machine. Terry. I recognized it immediately. It's low jazz, now breathy and desperate. You got to get me out of here. I'm circling the drain. I reached for the receiver, nerves sparking cold, and almost picked up. The voice belonged to my brilliant and intractable friend, my former mentor, artist Jerry Van Syke. Here was a skilled nursing facility in West Virginia, where her niece had consigned her when Jerry became too disruptive to care for at home. Her voice continued. I sent you a DVD of my movie. I want you to get it to someone in Hollywood. Jerry believed someone would buy the rights for enough money to get her back to Chicago. Her movie, The Temple, the Brothel, and Art, had been lovingly pieced together from decades worth of slides and home movies. It recounted her life as an artist and a lesbian, a life she often referred to as mythic. Jerry had been part of building communities of gay men and lesbians, feminists and artists. Where were those communities now? She had been part of my community, my chosen family. Although her plan to raise cash was not feasible for many reasons, her call to me was not unreasonable. In my 20s, I had promised I would take care of her when she was old. Where was I now? I was in Los Angeles. This was not the first call like this I had received, and when they'd first started, I was ready to jump into action. For some months, I had been communicating via email with her niece, her friends in Chicago, her community in Grand Rapids, Michigan. All had tried in the past few years to offer her care. To a woman, they assured me that as much as she wanted it, Jerry was no longer capable of taking care of herself. A series of strokes had brought the harsher aspects of her personality to the fore, so she was abusive to the people trying hardest to attend to her. I had to push down the conviction so ingrained in my personality that I could somehow succeed where everyone else had failed. I didn't have the guts to tell her no. I let the answering machine record her plea. I did not pick up. In one of the earliest photographs I have of Jerry, Her body is splayed across a ramp that slants from the second story of her windmill to the ground. She wears worn, snug-fit jeans and a black velvet jacket, her white blonde hair a contrast to the rough-hewn wood beneath her. She looks tiny against the backdrop of this 35-foot structure, which she designed with the university colleague and built with help from the students at Thomas Jefferson College in 1975. Part ecological exploration, part art project, the windmill as a variation on Stonehenge was built entirely of scavenged wood from the surrounding farms and was designed to power a stereo system that blared 70s soul music out into the ravines of the rural campus. Unlike the kitschy pastel windmills that were ubiquitous in nearby Holland, Michigan, Jerry's windmill was confrontational and grungy, making no effort to be aesthetically pleasing. The windmill exemplified some of her most cherished values: provocation, myth-making, self-sufficiency, and high play. The first day I met her on campus, she took me on a tour of the windmill. She brought me into her office where a poster on the wall challenged, "Are queers keeping you up at night?" Thank you.
This portrait of Jer is precious and memorable and fraught with complication. So well done. Lots of love coming in. I'm going to add a link to the chat that folks can refer to later. It's a link to Jer's movie, The Temple, the Brothel, and Art.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we will continue on with our final poet of the evening, Susan Kress. We'll hear from Susan, and then we'll wrap it up.
Thank you. Thank you, Calyx, and congratulations, Calyx. I think a 50th anniversary is no small accomplishment in the life of magazines, especially these days. So special congratulations to you all. My poem is on page 146. Mother toward the end. She lay there in a huddle of umbilical tubes and twisted sheets, breath and words a struggle. A little sugar, she pleaded. Take away the bitter. A new sign above her bed ordered, nothing by mouth. I hunted down a sugar packet from the coffee shop, wet my finger in the blue cup of water, dabbed a few grains on her sore tongue. So sweet, she murmured, reaching with her good hand to stay my finger. Thank you.
And thank you for a little sweetness in the end. I think we all need and deserve and hope for that. Thank you so much, Susan. I want to thank everyone, all of our readers, everyone who joined and stayed. Ingrid and Elizabeth, it was such an honor to be with you. For anyone who couldn't be here, that we will record and post this on the website soon. And just a few notes in closing. These moments are central to why we do what we do. We're not just making a book, we're creating an invitation, and this is how we get you here. We make the journal so moments like this can exist. So if something moved you this evening, a line, an image, a story, please consider reaching out to each other, to others. Write them an email, send them a love note. It's an act of genuine generosity, and the world could use more of it. So thank you, thank you. Thank you for being here and for your support of Calyx. looking back, but also looking ahead. And with that, we will say good night. Thank you, everyone.